You also want to know morphology. Morphology is looking at words that have, prefixes and suffixes like unbelievable, mistakable. Those are the type of words that you think about morphology. Syntax. Syntax is sentence structure. Syntax, sentence structure. Typically, if a student is like me, want juice. This test, of course, is very emergent bilingual heavy, of course. So you would use sentence stems to help those students. Lexicon is basically when a group of words share, like, they're up under the same umbrella. So if you had a group of terms that talk about like medical terms or scientific terms, that's a lexicon, right? The vocabulary is pretty much shared. Semantics, I think about the M in semantics, meaning word meaning. So if you had a student who was like, we play floor, they're struggling with the meaning of, floor. Discourse is conversation. And pragmatics is the social use of language. Pragmatics is the social use of language. For B, it says notes of functions and registers. One of the key answer choices are role playing, right? So one of the things you want to remember is students are going to understand social language a lot faster than the academic formal language. So that falls under BICS, which is the basic interpersonal skills. So that's the everyday language, like, hey, what's up? How you doing? Which, that they're going to acquire within 1 to 3 years, right? So that's why knowing the functions and registers of language are important. So that's that social versus academic language in English. The academic language students are going to acquire within 5 to 7 years, right? And so that's that academic language and vocabulary and discourse. You also want to understand the interrelatedness of listening, speaking, reading, and writing. They always work together. It's always about how reading is reinforcing writing, or how listening is reinforcing speaking, right? I always tell my kids in my classroom, how are you going to answer the question if you're not listening? You're just saying stuff. So it's all about how they reinforce one another, okay? So one of the things that I would make sure that I did was read the competencies, because it's going to give you the framework of the exam, the mindset of the exam. It's not about necessarily what you would do in your classroom. It's about what the exam is expecting you to choose, right? So in order to get in the mindset of the exam, you have to read the competencies. Next, I know one person was familiar with the study guide here, but there are questions here. So there are about 40 questions free of charge. It is a resource that you can use. So I'm going to go through about 3 or 4 of these questions, and then I'll leave the rest for you to go through on your spare time and kind of work through accordingly. So it says, which of the following is most important for effective second language acquisition? Engaging in social activities and meaningful interactions. When you go and take the actual exam, you do have the highlighting feature. So that's a good thing. B, memorizing. Memorizing is always a bad word. Please stay away from memorizing. Anything to do with memorizing or copying, always a no-go. We have interacting primarily with the teacher. So we already know that what's going to help them is not primarily, interacting with the teachers. It's interacting with their teachers, with their peers, meaningful interactions, social interactions, things of that nature. Learning with various structured and rote activities. Some of the activities will be structured, some will just be relatable and real world experience. So the answer here would be A, engaging in social activities and meaningful interactions. All right. Number 3. So remember, we went over competency 1 and it was about, grammar. So this right here is a grammar question. We need to review the lesson about the auxiliary verbs that are placed before other verbs to express meanings such as permission. We have ability and possibility. It appears that the application of these words still poses some difficulty for you. So the feedback is primarily in response to the student's difficulty in which of the following. So we have principal verbs. The way that I remember principal verbs is like the principle of the thing, right? When people are like, oh, it is a big deal. It's the principle of the thing. You're standing on business. You can stand alone. A principal verb can stand on its own, right? Jesus wept. Wept would be the principal verb. Jesus wept, period. Nothing has to come after that. A linking verb. She was upset. Was would be the linking verb. Is linking the subject to what is happening in the sentence. State of verb is the state of being. She hoped for better. Hoped would be the state of verb. She believed she could do better. Believed would be the state of verb. So state of equals state of being. Modal verbs. Modal must, she must do this. She should do this, right? So modal is expressing permission, ability, possibility, things of that nature. Okay, so that's where that would fall in. All right, so for number 4, I'm going to highlight what's important. And now we're in competency 2. The teacher understands the process of first language and second language acquisition and the interrelatedness of L1 and L2. So which of the following statements is primarily true about the relationship between the student's first and second language acquisition? When you're ready, you can put your answer in the chat. So if you said C, you would be correct. Students who receive formal schooling in L1 do better at acquiring L2 than students with no schooling in L1. And you're going to have that question in a variety of ways, right? It's not going to be the same. Some of the questions are going to be straight to the point. Some of them are going to be longer form, but it's still the same concept. All right, let's look at 5. Marcos is an ELL who is literate in his native language. So that means he speaks and writes and reads in his native language. He speaks English well, but he struggles with reading informative text in English. After assigning a research project, the teacher wants to find a way to support Marco's English literacy development as he completes the assignment. Which of the following is the best way to accomplish the teacher's goal? So when we think about, pairing an ELL student with another student, that's normally a student who's at the beginning level. We do know that Marcos, he does speak English well. So he's past the beginning stage, or even just like giving him all the materials in his first language. So having him present his findings in English, B would be correct, okay? Because the use of native language research to supplement English text will help Marcos understand the academic content and continue to develop his English speaking skills. In addition, it will allow Marcos to use his native language to scaffold his learning in English. All right. So for you individuals who might have been like, oh my God, I've not seen this before. You have access to it. It's in the link. We're getting ready to move on to the PowerPoint. Give me 1 second to pull that up. And also, you guys, if you have score reports, and you would like me to kind of give you some feedback on the score report, you can feel free to send that to me as well, so that I can help you kind of figure out what's the next move. Alrighty, let's see here. All right. So it says it is most important for a teacher who provides content instruction to ESL students to do which of the following? We have A, expect the ESL student to remain academically behind their peers, which we know is always incorrect. B, discourage ESL students from using non-standard English. C, provide lower level content instructional materials to the ESL students. D, incorporate content materials that are culturally relevant to the ESL students. So some key words here. Um, Culturally relevant is definitely a key word. I do not want you guys to fall like go into the pitfall because some people they overuse the keywords. And so when they see it in the answer choice, it's like, oh, I'm automatically going to pick that. No, you still want to make sure you read the question, make sure you have a thorough understanding of the question, read the answer choices, and go from there. Don't be 100% led by the keywords. All right. It says Mr. Sato, a middle school science teacher, sees that the ELLs in his class are having difficulty understanding a new unit about volcanoes. Which two of the following will be the most effective strategies to help his students understand the content? So I'm going to have you read the answer choices, look at what has been highlighted, and when you're ready, you can put your answer in the chat. All right. If you chose two answers, then you were really locked in. You wanted to make sure that you chose two responses, right? So we had A, asking the students to write down what they know about the day's topic at the beginning of the class. You always want to pick answer choices that is about scaffolding, building on what students already know, right? The dictionary. Dictionaries are not student friendly, right? So we would stay away from just using the English dictionary. Pairing an ELL with a native English speaker, that's great at the beginning level. Having students pre-read selections at home. A lot of times these exams want to know what you are able to do as a teacher. So those are typically incorrect. E, showing a short video clip about the day's topic at the start of class. Absolutely. A short video clip. So not an entire video because that's very passive. Things that we want to stay away from, flashcards, worksheets, workbooks, all of that, long form videos, stay away from all of that. That's typically incorrect. And it's all about high expectations. You never want to pick answer choices that dumb down the information just because the student is an emerging bilingual student. So keep that in mind as well. An ESL teacher works with a class of ELLs who read with various levels of proficiency. To assist with students' independent reading, the teacher assigns individual reading assignments on computers. Which of the following statements describes the most important benefit of utilizing technology in reading instruction? Yeah, so with technology, you receive immediate feedback for sure. Okay. That is the best thing about technology is the immediate feedback. Absolutely. All right, so we're going to go ahead and look at some certified teacher questions. I tend to kind of go back and forth between maybe two or three resources. And kind of just model what it looks like to use maybe two or three different resources, but never, five and six. I see a lot of people, and, they're gathering as many resources as possible. And sometimes that can be very overwhelming. So I would say stick to two or three resources and go from there. So we're going to go back to competency one, which is all about concepts, structures, and convections. All righty, let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, a teacher is developing instructional activities to promote the literacy development of a small group of young children who are English language learners. The teacher plans an activity in which the students tell stories in English while the teacher writes what the students say. Which of the following guidelines would be most important for the teacher to follow when writing the stories told by the English language learner? So I am going to just annotate what's important in each answer choice, and then we'll discuss the right answer. All right, so if you said B, you're absolutely correct, right? So once again, this is a prime example of the competency that we read and the question that mirrors the competency of showing how written and what is spoken and what is read and what you listen to, how it all works together, right? So it would be B, reinforce the student's understanding of the relationship between written and oral language by making sure the students see the teacher write down their exact words, okay? And this also goes back to the language experience approach, where you want students to see, the relationship between what they say and what is written down. We wouldn't paraphrase because we're not there yet. So we're not going to paraphrase anything. And then D is talking more about comprehension. So that wouldn't make sense either. All right, so this question here is emphasizing structural analysis. And structural analysis is basically a word, well, basically it's a way to break down a word that has a prefix, a root word, and a suffix, right? So those type of words like mistakable, undeniable, right? Those are the type of words you would use structural analysis with. All right, so knowing that, what would your answer be for this question? Take some time to read it and then put your answer in the chat. Yes. So impassable would be a word that you would use for structural analysis. Absolutely. It's the only word here that has the prefix, the root word, and the suffix. All right. Pragmatics is the social use of language. Keep that in mind as you answer this question. If you said A, you would be correct. Observing the students during social interactions, because pragmatics is the social use of language. So in this case, you definitely want to know the vocabulary. The vocabulary will make or break whether you get the answer right or wrong in this instance. All right. An English language learner experiences difficulty with an aspect of English phonology. In order to address a difficulty in this area, the student teacher should initially focus. So initially means to first focus instruction on the associated. All right, so when we look at phonology, so phonemic awareness, phonological awareness, phonology, all of that is dealing with sounds. Sounds. So phonology, when we think about pronunciation, how we pronounce a word, it's all dealing with sounds. And so it's going to be D as in dog, target sound. So phonology, and I'll put them in the chat. When we think about phonology, when we think about phonological awareness, all of these are auditory skills. So students have to be listening. When we think about phonemic awareness, which equals sound awareness, right? All of these fall under, so you have phonological awareness, which is the overarching umbrella, right? But you have phonology, you have phonemic awareness. It's all dealing with sound. So it's going to be D, target sound. If you're just joining us, welcome, welcome. So just remember that for your notes. All right. So once again, this is a grammar question, and we have one more question from competency one, and then we're going to move to competency two. To watch in horror as James poured his chemistry experiment into the sink. So students in Mrs. Thomas ESL class frequently write sentences in their writing similar to the one shown above. Mrs. Thomas wants to address this problem and help her students become effective writers. Based on the sample, students are most likely having difficulty with. So we have phrase fragments. When you think about fragments, you want to think of pieces of the sentence, right? They don't make sense. If you had a sentence and it said, we went, what was it? Went to store. Who went to the store? Got bread. You got bread where? With who? Right? So those would be phrase fragments. A coordinating conjunction, you think about fanboys, so like for, nor, you think about and, right? So those are conjunctions. An infinitive phrase always starts with to, and then there is a verb. So an infinitive phrase always starts with to, and then there is a verb. It is a phrase, right? So it is not a complete sentence. And so it's going to be C. This is what an infinitive phrase looks like. You have to, and then you have the verb. To watch in horror as James poured his chemistry experiment into the sink. That would be an infinitive phrase. A subordinate clause is a clause that cannot stand on its own. So when you think about a complex sentence, before she went out, right? Before she went out, she did what? That would be a subordinate clause that can't stand on its own. So this is an example of an infinitive phrase. Anyone have any questions about this one? Infinitive phrase. So for the grammar part, I would make sure I know what a coordinating conjunction is, a subordinating conjunction, compound, complex sentences, relative pronouns. It's not enough to just know what a verb is or a noun or, an adjective. You got to go a little bit more deeper. All right, next question. I'm going to highlight what's important. And when you're ready, you can put your answer in the chat. I'll give us about 30 more seconds. Yep. So if you said C, you were absolutely correct, right? So one of the things that you wanted to hone in on was the sounds, right? So because Spanish speakers and you speak English, Spanish and English share the same alphabet and the same corresponding sounds. That's why you might have like cognates, where these are words that sound the same, but they mean something totally different. From my experience, what is it? Embarazada, I think that's how you say it. In English, that means to be embarrassed, to be shamed. In Spanish, it means to be pregnant, right? So those would be cognates. And you get that a lot in Spanish because the sounds are similar in the letters are similar versus Vietnamese, the sounds are French. So it's going to be very different. So we would do process of elimination here. A is just outright wrong. In Vietnamese, there are no cognates. Spanish speakers will acquire written English skills more rapidly. We were not talking about writing, we were talking about sounds. Literate Vietnamese speakers will develop English literacy at a rate similar. No, they will not. Just because what we just said, the sounds are different. Spanish speakers will have less difficulty than Vietnamese speakers in transferring their graphophonemic. So graph means the actual letter that's written out, and then phonemic means sounds. right? So basically putting it together, this is a fancy word for phonics, right? So letters plus sounds. So when you are using the actual letter plus the sounds, that is phonics. So graphophonemic is a fancy word for phonics. Phonological and phonemic awareness, you don't need to see the letter. But for phonics, you do need to see the letter. So if you said C, you are absolutely correct. All right, next question. I'm going to highlight what's important. Y'all moved kind of fast with this question. Moved a little fast. Moved a little fast. Okay, so let's see here. There might be a misconception, so we need to break this question down. It says, in order to read and write in English, an English language learner must have the ability to match sounds to letters and letters to sounds. So when you think about sounds only, not the letter, just sounds, is going to be phonemic awareness. Phonemic equals sound awareness. So I literally would write that in my notes. Phonemic equals sound awareness. It's only sounds. It's no letters. It's just sounds. Structural analysis, we already knew that wasn't right because it's breaking down a word using, the prefixes and the suffixes, right? We weren't talking about understanding anything, like understanding an excerpt, so comprehension was out. So this would have been phonics, right? So you remember we were talking about graphophonemic phonics, right? So that is when you're basically matching the letters to the sounds. With phonemic awareness, that's auditory only. You don't have to see the sounds. I'm sorry, you don't have to see the letters. You just only deal with the sounds. So this would be C, phonics. Any questions about this one? Just make sure you read extra careful. I noticed we went really fast on this question, so I would just kind of slow it down just a little bit. So next question. An eighth grade teacher wants to help students improve their spelling of scientific vocabulary. So all of these words are scientific vocabulary. Barometer, centimeter, dehydrate, hydrogen, microscope, telescope, things like that. Also notice these are words that can be broken down with like prefix, suffix, things of that nature, right? Are they divided? No, they're not divided. Clearly, these are full words. There's no division here. Keep that in mind as you answer the question. So if there is no division, we would automatically X out A and we would automatically X out D because nothing has been divided. So if you said C, you are absolutely correct. Familiarizing students with the spelling and meaning of Greek morphemes in scientific terms, right? So the meter, centi, tele, scope, right? Being able to like break these words down, micro, meaning small, meter, centi, right? All of these are Greek morphemes. Being able to break the word down. Right, really nice work. All right, so this is our last question. Solely independence. When you're ready, put your answer in the chat. All right, if you said A, you are absolutely correct, right? So taking all of these small sentences and making them into longer, more descriptive sentences, waiting for the buzz. That would be a dependent clause because it cannot stand on its own. So that would be a dependent clause. Matthew stood in the blazing sun, comma, fanning himself with the newspaper, okay? That would be our independent clause. And so this would be a complex sentence. So if you said A is an apple, you're absolutely correct. All right, guys. So I hope this session was helpful for you. I wanted to spend some time on competencies 1 and 2 because I know that's what you guys have said you really wanted to work on. Tomorrow we will have another session tomorrow at 7. It'll be a part of our happy hour segment. So when I say happy hour, that's really any session that's after 6. It'll be 30 minutes and we'll be focusing specifically on competency 2. And the link will be posted in school. It'll also be in the calendar. So definitely make sure that you see that. I'm also going to upload the recording. So if you need to go back and watch the recording, you'll have access to do that as well. Definitely put in school anything that you would like to see, any competencies you would like me to go over so that I can, what I like to do is just record it and then I upload it so you can go back and see it if it's not a live session. I'll just record myself doing the questions and then just upload it, as well as like creating different documents. So if you struggle with, I see we kind of had some struggling with phonological, phonemic, and phonics. So I'll probably create something to help you guys be able to see the difference between the three. But other than that, I hope this was helpful. And if you can come on Monday, we'll be there at 7 and the link will be in school. Other than that, you guys have a great rest of your day. You're welcome. Bye.